In sports, there's nothing worse than an injury. You can plan for how hard you work, your game plan, your coaching, but you can't plan for an injury.
Yeah, injuries are the worst. And you know what? It's pretty common that we see a player's season derailed, or hell, a team's season derailed by an injury or injuries, but it's a little bit more rare, and honestly, it's really, really sad when we see an entire career derailed by injuries, but it has happened.
Before we get into the video, please consider subscribing to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on any new videos. I feel bad for some of those young kids out there because they never got to see prime Amari Stoudemire. He was overshadowed by Dirk, Duncan, Garnett, but him and Steve Nash in the pick and roll, Amari as a rim runner, he was a beast for the Suns.
Bet you were over the moon when he signed with the Knicks.
Oh, I was hyped. I was like, we got Amari here now. There was rumors about Melo coming soon. He tried to recruit LeBron. That was pretty pathetic, but he tried. He tried.
He did try.
And the Knicks, that was their first all-NBA level player since Ewing.
God, the Knicks suck.
Hey, they're good right now.
They're very good right now. I'll give them that. Yeah, Amari with the Knicks, I remember there was that game they played against the Boston Celtics where there was 0.4 seconds left. They threw the ball into Amari at the three-point line. He just clean swished a three-pointer. It didn't count, and they lost the game. But I think that was the game where everyone looked at the Knicks and was like, all right, you know what? They're back to being a respectable team. Because that was the Celtics. They were coming off an NBA Finals appearance. They were still the preeminent team in the East. And the Knicks took them all the way to the wire. They lost, but they took them all the way to the wire.
Oh yeah, that first year with the Knicks, Amari was actually insane. He was all NBA second team. He finished 9th in MVP voting. He was legit like a top 10 player that season. And then after that, injuries really killed him.
And when they picked up Melo, I remember the hype around that duo was just insane. They were in the Big Apple. It was like, all right, we got Melo, we got Amari, got Chauncey Billups too, just as like a throw-in.
Yep.
He was still a really good player. Like, they got a team, got a little bit of time left in the season. Can they make a run in the playoffs? No, they couldn't. So, you know, that, okay, fine. It's year one, all right? We're going into year two. Didn't work out well in year two either.
Well, by the time Melo got there is when Amari's knees gave out on him, and that was basically the end of his prime. He never made an all-star game after that first year with the Knicks. And in hindsight, Amari Stoudemire and Carmelo Anthony on a basketball court together, it kind of makes sense it didn't work out.
Yeah, they're two guys that need distributing point guards to function well. Like, Melo took off when they got Chauncey Billups. Like, him and Allen Iverson were kind of hitting a wall because they're both black holes. He got Chauncey, took off, which is why the Knicks amnestying Chauncey makes no sense to me. Because they just had a revolving door of point guards after that. Tony Douglas, Mike Bibby, Jeremy Lin, Baron Davis, Iman Shumpert. None of these guys known for distributing the ball, by the way.
And then the next year, the Knicks actually had their best season in recent memory. They won 54 games, but by this point, Amari was kind of a bench player. He came back after missing 30 games, and he was just never the same at this point.
Yeah, by this point, it was Carmelo's team. It wasn't Carmelo and Amari's team. It was fully Carmelo Anthony's team.
So he was kind of a bench player for a couple years, eventually gets bought out by the Knicks, went to the Mavs for a bit, went to the Heat, and then he went to Israel. He went out on top in Israel. We got to give him that. He's a champion.
Also went to China.
Okay.
Played in the Big Three.
There you go.
Was a coach for the Nets for a year. And then I guess mutually didn't return. I don't know if he got fired, but mutually didn't return. I mean, you know what? He had a fair few highlights after he wasn't like a superstar level player anymore.
He still had a great career, so we'll give him that.
Yeah. And unlike some of the other guys on this list, at least we got like 5 to 6 really good years of seeing Amari at his absolute best before he started to decline. Like, he still had an all-star, arguably a Hall of Fame level career.
Yeah.
This one pains me to bring up, though, and everyone brings it up as one of, and keyword one of, because we're going to get to the other one, but one of the biggest what-ifs in NBA history, and that's Brandon Roy. And this one hurts so badly because I'm not exactly sure if other fans from around the league realize this guy saved our franchise. Like, the Blazers franchise was in a dark, dark place. Like, everyone knows the Jail Blazers and whatnot, but I don't know if they realized that it was Brandon who brought us, and it was LaMarcus and it was Nate McMillan and there were other people, but Brandon was the guy who brought us out of that dark age.
Yeah, non-Blazer fans, you're just not gonna get it. Like, this city loved Brandon Roy, and he did save us. He was Dame before Dame, and he was so good. He had maybe the most fitting nickname in NBA history, The Natural, because the game was just so smooth to him. It looked like it was in slow motion. He could get to the rim. He had a step-back mid-range game. He could hit the three ball. He could really do it all.
I was going to say, it always just looked so effortless watching him play. Like, he never looked like he was stressing. It never looked like anything was wrong. It never looked like the moment was too big for him. Like, he always looked so calm and in control. And like you said, everything he did on the court was just smooth as butter. It was beautiful.
And it's so sad because he's one of those guys, if not already, he's just going to be straight up forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people 10 years from now are going to be like, Brandon Roy, who's that? But Kobe said he was the toughest player to guard in the West. Ron Artest just straight up said he was the toughest player to guard in general.
He's the best player I played against.
He's a better player than Kobe Bryant, a better player than LeBron James?
He's the best player I played against.
He was only here for like 3 years, and yet he had so many highlights. The insane game winner against Houston in 2009, where
my God.
He's like 40 feet from the hoop, and he legit just chucks it to the sky. And I don't know if you will ever see a cleaner swish through the basket than that shot. It's insane.
The ball borderline like left the frame of vision for the TV. He shot that to the moon and back.
He scored 52 against Phoenix in December of 2008. And this is 2008. This is back when scoring 50 was a big deal and not a weekly occurrence.
Made the All-Star team for the second year in a row that year, and things were just looking great for the Blazers. You had a young Roy, you had a young Aldridge. We were trying to get Odin healthy, and then the next year for Roy, his knees gave out on him.
And he was still good when he played. Like 2010, he still made the All-Star team. And in that summer, in the summer of 2009, we inked him to a 4-year max contract. But he had a meniscus tear. He was ruled out of the 2010 playoffs. He eventually returned, but from then on, it just went downhill. The 2010-11 season was the worst. It was just like, it seemed like it was setback after setback. Like, he'd come back, he'd play well, he'd be out for a while. He'd play a couple games, he'd be out for a while. Like, it got to the point where the cartilage in his knee had just completely worn away to the point where it was just bone on bone. In a game where you have to consistently run up and down the court and jump every time you shoot it, that doesn't sound very good. At least with Brandon, though, he gave us one final amazing memory, and that was Game 4 against Dallas in 2011. Down 23 in the third quarter, down 18 in the fourth quarter. Again, this is 2011. An 18-point fourth quarter deficit was as close to a sure thing as you could possibly get. And Brandon led us all the way back, hit a 4-point play to tie the game, hit a jumper on the next possession to give us the lead. Amazing. We lost the series, but hey, that was the world champion Mavericks. We gave them as much trouble as anyone did on their playoff run. You know what? We'll always have that with Brandon Roy.
Yeah, he had that moment, and that was beautiful. I was borderline in tears that game. And yeah, that was the title Mavs team, and we played them tough. No one's ever going to remember that series, but us Blazer fans will. And it was a sweet moment to kind of go out. He closed games like he used to in the past. It was nice to see. Now the player, you knew he was coming. The number 1 pick in the 2008 draft, the youngest MVP ever, Derrick Rose. And it's so sad to see because out of all the guys we talked about, none of them was an MVP. But Derrick Rose, he was an all-NBA, MVP level player, and his ACLs, his knees just, again, gave out on him.
Yeah, it sucks. This guy was on such an amazing trajectory. And yeah, like you said, he is the guy that everyone knows as like the guy who had his career ruined by injuries. We haven't made it yet, but he might very well be on the thumbnail for this video. So he was going to be the guy for that Bulls team that was a serious challenger to the Heat. Like that Bulls team with Tom Thibodeau, with Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah, Boozer, Dang, that Bulls team had a suffocating defense.
The craziest thing, I kind of couldn't believe it when I was researching this video. He was the first All-Star for the Bulls since Jordan.
Really?
That is correct.
And really think about since Jordan left, the only time they've even been a borderline contender was with Derrick Rose. And it finally felt like they had the team. They were going to compete with the Heat. They were young. They were locked down on defense. And then they had Derrick Rose to lead them offensively. And their time contending, it was so short.
Yeah, it sucks because the 2010-11 season, they won 62 games and it felt like it was just the beginning for that team. Like they went to the conference finals. They played the Heat. Okay, you know what? Sure, they lost in 5, but for basically everyone on that roster, it was their first time time being in that situation, first time really being that deep in the playoffs. You're thinking, all right, they're going to learn from this. They're going to get better. And hey, the next year, 50 wins, 16 losses, right back as the number 1 seed. Game 1 against Philadelphia in their house. They're up by 12 with a minute 22 left in the game. Why on God's green earth is Derrick Rose still in that game?
Because Tom Thibodeau will not give his starters a rest.
Again, though, you're up 12 with a minute 22. This is not 2023. This is 2012. Up 12 with a minute 22 to go. You're good. The 8th seeded 76ers, led by probably Andre Iguodala and Lou Williams at the time, they're not making up that deficit. They're just not.
And it was kind of like Brandon Roy from there. Like, year after year was just another injury. Like, he'd try and come back, and again, his body just time after time kept failing him.
He missed all of 2012-13, despite, he got cleared in March, decided to sit out the whole year anyway. And he came back after just 10 games. He was playing against the Blazers. I remember because I was watching the game live, and he tears his meniscus. And I remember just watching the game and being so devastated. I was like, no. He's been out for like 18 months. He's been back for like 2 weeks. And he's gonna get hurt again. Like, no one knew what the injury was at the time, but like, that's the last thing you want to see.
And it sucks for a guy like him. It's not like Curry getting injured or something where he can rely on his shot, or KD bouncing back from injuries. Derrick Rose relied on his athleticism, his dunking ability, his change of direction, that iconic dunk over Dragic we all remember.
Oh.
He was Ja before Ja, and the injuries just took away his bounce straight up.
What I will say about Derrick Rose, and this is, I honestly have a huge amount of respect for him, is every time he got injured, he always fought back against the injuries and came back and played. And that is brutal to do. I mean, that's why Andrew Luck retired. If you listen to what Andrew Luck said after he retired, he was basically just like, I get hurt, I'm out for, 6 months, 8 months, I do all this, therapy, all this rehab to come back stronger than ever. I play a couple months and then I get hurt again. And like, that's so draining on you mentally and on your psyche. And he was eventually like, I can't do it anymore. And Derrick Rose, every single time he has gotten hurt, he has come back and played again.
I mean, it's been over 10 years since that original ACL injury. The dude's still in the league at this point. Like, it didn't stop his career. In that iconic 50-point game when he's playing for the Timberwolves, he got the game-winning block. He was crying at the end. That was a beautiful moment. Sure, it wasn't a playoff game or anything, but that was just so beautiful because it represented, like we just talked about, all the rehab and the mental strength it took to come back year after year and keep competing. That was a great game.
Everything it took just to get back on the court.
Exactly.
Much less score 50 points. And he had more highlights than just that. He had that banked in 3-point buzzer beater against the Cavs in the semifinals, and he gave that iconic look afterwards where he's like, yeah, I'm still that guy.
Yep.
Hope y'all didn't forget who I was.
I'm still him. So what NBA injury broke your heart? Let us know in the comments below. If you guys enjoy basketball content, consider watching one of the videos on screen. Please like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe to Synthetic Sports.